The Assyrians were an ancient Mesopotamian civilization that dominated the Near East during the 19th and 18th centuries BCE. They were a fierce and powerful people who built a massive empire that stretched from Egypt to the Persian Gulf. However, despite their military prowess and cultural achievements, the Assyrians are often remembered today as brutal and merciless conquerors whose reign of terror left a lasting scar on the ancient world. Regarding to Assyrians today, we will be taking a look at one of the oldest civilizations known to man, the Elamites. The Elamites were one of the first civilizations to emerge in human history. They settled in southwestern Iran, which is now modern-day Khuzestan, around 3200 BCE. This means that their civilization started around 500 years before the ancient Egyptian civilization took off. Their civilization would last until around 539 BCE, which is about 2,700 years. During this time, they would be neighbors with the Mesopotamian civilizations of Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria. The Elamites would fight them, trade with them, and, at times, rule over them. And their capital city was named Susa. Susa was one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth during the time that it was founded. It was a small village, but over the millennia it would blossom into a great metropolis. It was so important that it was chosen as the winter capital by many of the empires that ruled over the region. These included the Achaemenid Empire, the Parthian Empire, and the Sassanid Empire. As the capital of Elam, though, the city would become a hub of international trade due to its location between Mesopotamia and the Persian Gulf. This made it one of the richest cities in the region. Over its thousands of years, the city would get sacked, rebuilt, destroyed, and rebuilt again, but it would never fully be abandoned. It is for this reason that Susa is considered one of the oldest continually inhabited cities on Earth. The Elamites spoke their own language, which was neither Indo-European nor Semitic, making it completely unique. This language is known as Elamite, and though not much is known about it, it is still incredibly important because it remained in use for over 2,000 years. It was also used by the Achaemenid kings who ruled over much of the Middle East. In fact, many of their royal inscriptions were done in 3 languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian. Elamite would survive even longer than this, however, as it was spoken until around the 4th century CE. That's 2,000 years from when it first emerged. It continued to live on in certain regions even after the official end of the Elamite civilization. When exploring any ancient civilization, I always love learning about their architecture because it tells me so much about their society and beliefs. The Elamites built large step temples called ziggurats. Ziggurats were huge structures that acted as a physical manifestation of the relationship between gods and humans. They were typically built for a chief deity of a city. To the Elamites, these were places of pilgrimage, so they would travel from all around the region to come and pray at the top of these massive pyramids. One of the best preserved ziggurats is Chogha-Zanbil. It is located near the city of Shush and was built around 1250 BCE. It was built for the god of the underworld, possibly named Kidam or Kidag, with the name translating to end of the world. When it was built, it was over 100 feet tall, but much of it has since eroded. It was constructed of mud brick, burnt brick, and gypsum. Only about half of the structure remains today. Still, it is impressive, and if you want to see it for yourself, it is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Architecture and religion aside, the Elamites were a fairly advanced society for their time. They developed irrigation systems to water their crops, allowing them to thrive in the marshes of their homeland. They created metal tools that helped them farm more efficiently and even crafted vibrant pottery that would be traded all across Mesopotamia. They made many contributions to the surrounding regions and even influenced neighboring cultures. For example, the Elamite word for king was translated into Akkadian as Lugal, which would become the title that all Mesopotamian kings would use. Even the Egyptian pharaohs would use the term centuries later. Now let's talk about the Elamite queens. The Elamites had several powerful female rulers, which is quite interesting considering how rare it was for women to have power in the ancient world. Queen Emini was likely the first woman to rule over Elam. She was the wife of the king Untash-Napirisha, and she took the throne following his death. She then proceeded to rule over the kingdom for 38 years. Another great queen was Queen Nakshi, who ruled alongside her husband, King Shimshi, Adad V. Her bust was found at the Apadana Palace in Persepolis, and she is depicted wearing a crown and a necklace containing precious stones. Both of these examples are isolated incidents, however, as very little is known about the role of women in Elamite society. We do know that royal women enjoyed higher political status than women of lower birth. This is evidenced by the high-status burial of Queen Nakshi. However, there is no evidence of other powerful female rulers outside of the royal family. Still, it is clear that they were considered equals to men in the eyes of the law. It should also be noted that Elamite society wasn't the only one in the region to treat women this way. Other Mesopotamian civilizations, such as the Mesopotamian Sumerians and the Akkadians, also gave women rights unheard of in other parts of the ancient world. As mentioned earlier, the Elamites frequently went to war with the Mesopotamian kingdoms, but they also traded with them often. If they weren't fighting each other, the Elamites and the Mesopotamians were usually getting along famously. The Elamites sold timber and other goods to the Mesopotamians, and in turn, they purchased silver, gold, and slaves from them. Trade between the two regions flourished for hundreds of years, and this led to close ties between them. There were also times, however, when the Elamites conquered Mesopotamian cities. For example, during the reign of King Untash-Napirisha, he conquered the city of Lagash, looted it, and placed a statue of himself in its temple. But it wasn't all one way, as the Elamites were also conquered from time to time. For example, during the reign of the ruthless King Hammurabi of Babylon, he defeated the Elamites and forced them to pay tribute. Despite their many achievements, the Elamite civilization would eventually collapse. It fell around 539 BCE, when the Achaemenid king Cyrus the Great conquered the region. Cyrus was able to defeat the Elamites with the help of the Medes, and this brought an end to their 2,000-year-long civilization. The Elamites were a proud people, however, and they would never submit to the Achaemenids. Despite this, Cyrus allowed them to keep their customs and beliefs. He also allowed them to keep their wealth and granted them amnesty for any crimes committed in the past. Because of this, many of the Elamites actually chose to remain in their homeland rather than flee to Persia or Mesopotamia. This shows the type of leader that Cyrus was. He knew that the strength of his new empire would come from its diversity, and he worked hard to ensure that all peoples under his rule were treated fairly. In the centuries following the conquest, the Elamites would lose their language and slowly assimilate into the Persian culture. Their influence did survive, however, as many of Cyrus's administrators and governors were Elamite. So, in a strange way, the Elamites helped shape the government of one of the largest empires in ancient history. And there you have it. That was a look at the rise and fall of the Elamite civilization. Did you enjoy this episode? Let me know down in the comments section below. Which civilization would you like to learn about next? Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great day, and goodbye.